My name is Margaret Wilson. I'm 62 years old, and I live alone in a small cottage on the outskirts of the city. My husband, Edward, passed away 6 years ago. Since then, I've had to learn how to live on my own. I have one daughter, Emily. She moved to Australia several years ago to pursue her career. She's married now and has 2 children of her own. Emily's life in Australia is full of happiness and success. She has a lovely family, a beautiful house, and a fulfilling job. But as much as I'm happy for her, I can't help but feel the loneliness in my heart. She doesn't visit often, and we only speak on the phone once in a while. Sometimes she sends me gifts, and sometimes she says, "Mom, I'll visit soon." But those visits never seem to happen. My days are simple. I wake up early, make my tea, and start my routine. I spend hours tending to my garden and doing little chores around the house. I try to keep busy, but when the evening comes, the house feels empty. I sit by the fireplace, my thoughts wandering to the past, and I often think of the times when my family was together. One evening, as I was finishing my dinner, the doorbell rang. I was not expecting anyone, and it was so unusual for someone to visit me. When I opened the door, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Emily. "Mom, I'm home," she exclaimed, smiling brightly. I stood frozen for a moment, trying to process what was happening. Tears filled my eyes. "Emily, is it really you? After all this time?" She hugged me tightly, and I felt a warmth in my heart that I hadn't felt in years. We sat down, and I made her a cup of tea. She told me about her life in Australia, the children, her work, and her husband, David. She looked so happy and successful, and it made me smile. But then she said something that made my heart ache. "Mom, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. You're getting older, and I worry about you. I want you to come and live with us in Australia. It will be a new beginning for you. You'll be part of our family, and I'll make sure you're comfortable." I felt a deep sadness inside me. The idea of leaving my home, my memories, was hard to accept. I had lived in this house for over 30 years, and it held the essence of my life. Edward's presence was everywhere. I couldn't imagine leaving all of it behind. "I don't know, Emily. This is where your father and I built our life. I can't leave it," I said quietly. Emily looked at me with concern. "Mom, it's for the best. You've lived alone for so long. In Australia, you'll have your own room, a beautiful house, and you'll see the grandchildren every day. You won't be lonely anymore." I was silent for a long time. My heart was torn. I loved my daughter, but I didn't want to leave the place I had called home for so many years. Still, I couldn't deny the love in her eyes and the concern in her voice. Finally, I said, "Okay, Emily, I will come with you. I'll leave the house." The next morning, we made the decision. Emily and her husband David arranged for the house to be sold. I packed my things, and we made plans for the flight. Though I felt sadness, I tried to focus on the thought of being with my daughter, surrounded by her family. When we arrived at the airport, Emily said, "Mom, wait here. I'll get the wheelchair for you." I nodded, sitting in the waiting area. It was a long journey ahead, but I was ready for the change. Minutes passed, then 30 minutes, and Emily didn't return. I grew worried, looking at every person who passed, but I couldn't see her. An hour passed, and still no sign of Emily. My anxiety grew, and I started to panic. Suddenly, a man in a uniform approached me. He looked kind, but serious. "Ma'am, are you waiting for someone?" he asked gently. Yes, my daughter, I replied, my voice trembling. She went to get a wheelchair for me. We're going to Australia together. The man nodded. Do you have her photo? I showed him a picture of Emily from my wallet. He took the photo and disappeared into the crowd. I waited, my heart racing. I hoped everything was just a misunderstanding. I waited for another hour. My legs were aching, and my fear grew stronger. When the man returned, his expression was grave. He sat next to me and spoke softly. Ma'am, I'm afraid your daughter has already boarded the flight. She is on the plane. She didn't take the wheelchair. She went alone. I felt like the world had collapsed around me. No, that's impossible. Emily would never leave me behind. She loves me. I'm very sorry, ma'am. I saw it with my own eyes. She boarded the flight and left without you, the officer said gently. Tears streamed down my face. My mind couldn't process what was happening. I couldn't understand why Emily would leave me like this. After everything, after all the promises, why had she left me behind? The officer's voice softened. I'm sorry. Sometimes people forget what's important. I cried uncontrollably, my heart broken. It felt like a betrayal, but it also felt like I had lost everything. The officer, whose name was James, saw my distress and said, I'm truly sorry, ma'am. You shouldn't be alone right now. Come with me. My wife, Grace, is waiting at home. She'll make you a meal. You shouldn't stay here. Though I was hesitant, I knew I couldn't stay at the airport any longer. I followed Officer James to his car, feeling lost. His wife, Grace, was a kind woman who welcomed me into their home. They treated me like family, offering me food and comfort. That night, I couldn't sleep. My heart ached for Emily. But the warmth and care that James and Grace gave me made me feel a little less alone. I felt like I had found a new family, and I couldn't help but feel grateful for them. The next day, James came to me with a sad look on his face. I need to tell you something, Margaret, he said quietly. The flight your daughter was on, it crashed. There were no survivors. I felt the world collapse around me. Emily was gone. My daughter was gone. The pain was unbearable. James and Grace held me through my grief, their love and kindness helping me face the unbearable loss. Days passed, and I slowly came to terms with the reality of what had happened. James and Grace became my family. They treated me with respect, love, and kindness. They gave me a home when I had lost everything. And one day, when I was sitting in the garden, looking out at the horizon, I realized that while I had lost Emily, I had gained something precious. I had a new family, one that loved me for who I was. When James asked, "Do you ever think about returning to your old life?" I smiled and said, "No. My old life is gone, but I found a new one here. And this time, I'm not alone."